Welcome to the GTN Show. Now, are you starting to wonder what the future of triathlon might look like? Are you someone who's keen to do more e-racing? Maybe you've dipped your toe in it, or you're just desperate to get back and race in person? It's interesting, we really don't know what the future is going to look like for our sport, but there's been some recent developments which we're going to be discussing on the show. We've also got a couple of exciting announcements. We have the winners of the Polar giveaway competition, but even more exciting, Fraser is back. Yeah, he's going to be bringing you news from the pros, both the virtual racing as well as what they're up to on social media. So there's plenty to get going. Let's not hang around. The uptake of virtual reality racing has been pretty huge and well received by athletes just keen to get out and race. And it might be a slightly different setup to what you were training for at the start of the season, but it's been something to target and keep us all motivated. Although with it have come a few issues when it comes to keeping the results fair. Now, Ironman virtual racing has been probably one of the biggest platforms, and as a result has seen some discrepancy in a few of the results. And it's not necessarily from cheating, it's more just the fact that the rules have been quite lax. I mean, there's no actual prizes up for grabs, it's just more bragging rights of being number one that week. And for example, you have up until now been able to ride your bike either on the trainer or outside. And there was even one competitor who found a very long stretch of downhill and apparently recorded their ride, and most of it was all downhill, so an incredibly fast time. But it's going to be really difficult if you live in, say, a hilly area compared to someone who lives in a really flat area and they can find a stretch that's got a tailwind the whole way. So it's obviously open to a little bit of give and take when it comes to how seriously you take those results. But Ironman are starting to implement and think about implementing some different rules that could potentially make it much fairer, especially if these results end up meaning something more important or even counting as qualification for races. So the cycling is no longer going to be allowed to be outside if you want to actually compete in this new level of racing. They're still going to have the original format open, so anyone can take part, and it's going to be spread out over the weekend, and you can just upload your distance. It doesn't even have to be that exact distance, and it can be in any order. But there's potentially going to be a new level of racing that will require you to sort of stick to these more strict rules, and that's going to include having to ride on the Ruby platform online, so you'll be on the exact same course as everybody else. And then when it comes to the run, that's going to have to be outside, because apparently they cannot measure treadmills so accurately. And I think for the run distance, you're more likely to be able to find an area that's going to be flat, and then that has to be uploaded, that GPS file has to be uploaded that way. So they're trying to make it a little bit more fair. Zwift have also added in measures to make sure that their racing is fair when it comes to the pros. And for the top 5 in the Z Pro Tri Racing, they actually have to weigh in and show their weight on a video. So there's various measures which looks like e-racing could start to become more serious, and there's still rumours in Ironman that it could end up being some qualification slots for world champs, which is pretty major. But it gets us kind of thinking, do we want to actually race e-racing in the future, or are we all desperate to get back and race in person up against each other? I mean, there's obviously benefits of e-racing. It's much cheaper in the fact that you don't need to travel to an event. There's less of a carbon footprint. You do, however, obviously have to have a turbo set up at home and GPS on your watch, which I think the majority of people at least have GPS watches. But you're then missing out on that whole sort of excitement. And is that why you're training, to then just race at home, or are you training for the buzz of going to an event and the times don't really matter to you? It's about that whole experience of being neck and neck with other competitors, feeling that pain together, and obviously the victory and having the chance to potentially stand on a podium. There is such a contrast in the two styles of racing. But I want to find out from you guys what you feel about this. Like, say in 6 months' time, or maybe this time next year, and we are allowed to race again. It might look a little bit different. We're not sure how that's going to look. But if you're given the choice of the option of actually going to an event and racing in whatever the new format looks like, or racing at home, what would you choose? I want you to let me know. You can vote in the poll just up here in the link, but also in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts on that. And as we're on the GTM poll, it's time to bring the results from last week. When we asked you, again, we were on the topic of racing, do you think we'll be racing by the end of this year, or should it all be on hold till 2021? And actually 59% of you said yes, let's race if we get the chance. So it'll be interesting to see what the poll from last week actually says of what type of racing that would be. And then 41% of you said scrap plans and return in 2021. It is also unknown, isn't it? But I think it's fair to say we're all pretty keen to do some sort of racing pretty soon. On with Tri News now, and you guys I think know we love shoes here at GTN. Well, I was pretty excited to discover a new running shoe brand, Artreo, who are mixing up the way shoes are marketed, distributed, basically sold. It's a bit of an interesting concept, and to find out more, I spoke to Michael from Artreo.
I had always determined that I like shoes around 150 or so miles before they feel a bit dead, a bit flat. And so I wanted a shoe to reflect both the midsole and the upper to contribute to an experience that you would receive them on a recurring basis. And I've set up a schedule that you can choose from, whether it be 1, 2, or 3 months, and we'll go ahead and do recurring deliveries per requirements of your training plan or how many miles you're running each month. And you can determine that after you kind of use the shoe, but I personally would get about one every month and have that on a recurring schedule. So, but what we're going to let US domestic customers do in the beginning is send them back to our headquarters here in Austin, Texas. And I'll pay for the return postage. So with each subscription shoe, you'll get a return postage that they can repack them in our bag that we sent them out in, and then send them back to us. We'll clean them, wash them, sanitize them, and distribute those to people in need of footwear here in the Austin, Texas area. Again, this all kind of goes back to the fact that when I was training for my, first Ironman, I really kept getting shoes and I didn't know when they were dead, and then I'd go past the point of no return, and then I'd need something new. So I kind of wanted to help with that experience.
We're all getting used to adapting and thinking outside the box in the current situation. And as a result, people are getting a little bit creative. And it was great to see a live triathlon show that went online as a result of Try Training Harder's idea to bring together the triathlon community and experts and offer this free online event. It was basically a conference that went for all of Saturday, the previous Saturday just gone, and they had experts from sports science, from triathlon coaching, as well as pros from around the world, all contributing into this conference. Now, I watched a little bit, and the good news is it's actually online to watch retrospectively, and I've definitely earmarked a few of those sessions to go in and have a look. It's entirely free to watch, but they have asked for a donation to the NHS Charities Together. So it was a great charitable sort of offering, but also some really useful information on there. So I'd suggest checking that out if you haven't seen it already. I know the future is unknown, and our respective governments around the world are releasing updates on the current situation with COVID daily, but it does seem that our sport of triathlon is starting to look at least into the future and what might be coming up. And the World Triathlon Board have recently announced that they are open to bidding for the host cities for the World Triathlon Series in 2021 and the World Cups. And these are very vital events as they're going to count towards the Olympic and Paralympic qualification rankings. That's obviously been frozen for the time being, but will reopen when racing resumes. And they've released a statement saying, "We know that the world is currently affected by the pandemic, but we also know that we'll overcome this situation and we will resume our events worldwide when it is safe and fair to do so." Well, those races in 2021 will be the prime focus for the pros, especially those that are yet to qualify for the Olympics, which will be held in August next year. Well, it looks like USA Triathlon are also moving their focus to the future as they have just released their Return to Multisport Initiative, Safe Return to Multisport Initiative. And with that, there are several documents that are going to be covering racing, training aimed at athletes, race directors, basically helping to guide all of us or all of the athletes who compete in triathlon in America. Even though the future is still unknown, it's starting to put together some sort of structure of what it might look like. And yes, that does depend slightly, well, majorly on how the government are going to play it, and it'll be different state to state. But it's exciting to see our sport starting to look to the future, and maybe there's an inkling of racing in the not too distant future. It's now time for the exciting announcements, and we're going to start off with the Polar giveaway winners. We had a Polar Vantage V and a new Polar Grip Watch up for grabs, and I'm happy to announce that The winner of the Polar Grit X goes to David Puelbo. Congratulations, David. And the Polar Vantage V will be on its way to Matthew Sires. Congratulations, guys. Now, talking of exciting announcements, in the intro, I mentioned that Fraser is back, and we are delighted to see him back on the show. And he's going to be bringing you the race news from the pros.
Yes, thanks, Heather. Now, phew, it has been quite some time since I have been in a GTN video, and a lot of you have very kindly been asking where I've been all of this time. And the truth be told, I just had to have some time away and a break due to a period of low and poor mental health, I am afraid. And depression, you see, is something that I have had to overcome and deal with earlier in my life, and it just got to the point where I needed to have a break from work in general, and clearly that meant being in front of the camera too. But I am really pleased to report that I'm starting to feel an awful lot more like my old self, which is good, and albeit behind the scenes, I have actually been back at work for a little while now, and I'm just really glad to start getting back in the fold and amongst it and involved with the guys and making videos again like this. So hopefully that'll just keep going more and more as we get into the future. And essentially, that is my little update of where I have been and what's going on with me. So with that, let's just get cracking and move on to the race news, or as it is now, the virtual race news. Now, the first event that I'll talk about is the 4th round of the Zwift Tri Pro Series. Now, this one did seem to fly under the radar a little bit, and that's because I think it wasn't broadcast as the others had been previously. Partly because there was just so much happening on the Zwift platform last week with lots of racing on the Tour for All series, so it was lost in all of the ether, I guess. And what we didn't notice that there wasn't just one race, there was actually two. There was a 7 a.m. slot and then a repeat again at 7 p.m. Now I guess that allowed for different athletes in different parts of the world, which is quite useful, but that was different. And another couple of different aspects too was one that they were really long, or a lot longer, nearly 75 Ks in fact, and they were also mixed events, which is the first time that that's happened. Although we had a lot of top athletes, the caliber of Alistair Brownlee, Helly Geens, Ronnie Schiltnet, Lucy Charles and Laura Siddall, to name just a few, they weren't quite as competitive as we'd been used to seeing in some of the earlier editions. And another difference was the format was slightly altered. They were going off in groups of athletes every 3 minutes, which I suppose allowed them to treat this a bit more like a training race if they wanted. Nonetheless, there was still a winner in both of these events, and actually that was the same person. It was the British athlete Jimmy Kershaw, whose name will be familiar to you guys if you've been following this Zwift racing, because he's already won a round of the series, so he clearly has his finger in the pulse and knows how to race these events. So maybe he'll be up there in the next one, which is this week on the Yorkshire course. Things are going to ramp back up again with 2 laps of that course, and by the time this GTN show is out and live, those results should already be up. Now, moving swiftly along to the Ironman virtual racing circuit, and this week saw the 6th edition of the Ironman VR Pro Challenge, which was held over a shorter Olympic distance type of format. And the racing this week had a very Australasian feel, shall we say, with top athletes from Australia and New Zealand battling it out head to head in search of some form of glory. And they were doing this over a 40k segment from the Ironman Indian Wells La Quinta bike course, again over the Ruvi platform. And this time we had Kiwis taking the top honours in both races. Now, for the women's race, I will refer to my laptop here to give you accurate results. Now, the winner was Teresa Adam. She took it in a time of 54:47. Country woman Hannah Wells was second in 56:34. And then we had Radka Kalafel, who is actually a Czech athlete, but she is a claimed Aussie because she's married to Brad Kalafel and lives in New South Wales. She was third in 59:50, and then rounding out 4th place was Ashley Gentle in 1 hour and 36 seconds. Moving on to the men's race, this was a little bit closer, but also taken by a Kiwi. We had Mike Phillips winning in a blistering time of 48:42, only 6 seconds ahead of fellow Kiwi Braden Curry, who was 48:48. And then Josh Amberger, Ashley Gentle's fiance, was in 3rd in 53:51, with fellow Australian Tim Reed rounding out in 4th, but actually he had an unofficial time because unfortunately after 29 kilometres of the event he had a malfunction, shall we say. The commentators had urged them all to push on hard and get a watt bomb, but he actually blew a fuse in his indoor trainer trying to create high watts, so he wasn't able to carry on and he vowed to go outside and complete his VR challenge, doing the final 11Ks out on the road. Good for him.
Yep, it's time for pictures. You guys have sent in a wonderful selection, so thank you again. We're going to start off though with a video from Colin in his endless pool in Hampshire, UK. Very lucky to be able to use this endless pool. Problem is everyone else wants to get in. Yeah, I can see that. Using the bungee as well as the jets. Well, Colin, I'm impressed by the fact you've got the jets, which look like they're on a rather high setting, as well as the bungee cord. So I'd imagine you're quite a strong swimmer. And yes, you have certainly made a lot of us very envious. But now to a pain cave. And I think we're all quite familiar with these at the moment. This one's been sent in by Dimitri, who's training in Dubai. And I think it's starting to get rather warm out there. So I'd imagine, Dimitri, you're spending a lot of time. Let's hope you've got some good aircon going on. It's a Trek Speed Concept 9.9 Project 1. And that's on his Wahoo kicker with a climb and a 32-inch curved display. So obviously set up for many hours in there, and I'm guessing this is your son who's enjoying the setup as well. Nice one. Next we've got Amelia. This is a Boardman SLR 8.9. Amelia is based in Surrey. And I'm gonna have to look a bit closer because she says, what better way to finish off our pain cave than with a puppy called Milo? I didn't spot Milo to start with, but yeah, there he is on the towel. I'm loving I think you guys realise I've got a bit of a soft spot for any dogs, especially puppies. But puppy obviously is for life, yeah, don't forget. But this next setup is rather swish indeed. This is from Pierce, and he's got a watt bike Atom, as well as a treadmill and a squat rack, as well as his bike on the wall. He says, a family affair, myself and Caroline and my son, 11-year-old Eddie. He was taking part in Ironman Hamburg, but waiting to hear about the reschedule. But grateful to still be able to train. Yes, we all need to just be grateful for the fact that we can still do a lot of our sport indoors and even outdoors in some places now. So keep up the good work there. This one, oh, lovely bit of fresh air and outside now from John. What's the outdoors? Opus Vivace 2.0, and it's from Middle Cove, Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. It looks open and bleak, but wonderful fresh air. First ride of the year after winter and the stay-at-home rules. And I imagine quite a few of you guys now are starting to see rules changing. Here in the UK, we've been given the all clear to go out and do as much exercise outside as we want. So do feel free to send your photos in. If you're going outside for the first time on your bike or for a run, share those pictures. If you're still perfecting your pain cave or you're working out at home, share those as well. And videos are also welcome. You can do all of that by just clicking on the uploader link, which is in the description below, or pasting what's on screen right now.
Now, it is time to catch up with what the pros have been getting up to over this last week. And there seems to be lots of extreme challenges happening using Zwift these days. And one that seems to be gathering a pace is the concept of Everesting, or V-Everesting as it seems to be called on Zwift. Now, the concept is pretty simple. It is cover all 8,848 meters of altitude that is Everest in one single ride or climb in effect. Now, this is 8.5 or 8 and a bit times up the Alpe du Zwift climb in-game on Zwift, and it is pretty brutal. Now, I first noticed this earlier this month when Mark Cavendish gave it a go, and it takes some 10.5 hours to complete and 210 kilometers to get through it and unlock what they call the Everesting Challenge. So this week we had some triathletes giving it a go. Now, Nikki Bartlett decided to enlist the help of 7 friends to help her raise some money for her cancer charity of choice, Move. And they managed to do that again in about 10 hours. Absolutely brilliant achievement, and did those 8.5 ascents up Alpe du Zwift. Now, just to keep things a little bit more lighthearted and fun, Nikki continued the theme of having done all her running outdoors dressed as Spider-Man, so she thought that she would do a little bit of the ride also dressed as Spider-Man. Now, this is something that we have touched on a little bit in previous weeks in the show, so well done to you, Nikki, and all the other guys who helped her get through it. But actually, Everesting isn't something that needs to be confined to indoors, because I spotted French athlete Etienne Dumanche this weekend, celebrating in effect the fact that French restrictions are now starting to ease, allowing them to ride outdoors. So he has been in confinement on a small farm, and he decided to use a farm track on that area to complete his Everesting challenge. Now, I'm going to refer to the stats here because they're quite brutal. 171 times up this farm track with 500 meters of riding on each rep, 52 meters of elevation gain, which meant that took him over 10 hours and 178 kilometers of riding outdoors to do it. So well done to you, Etienne. Now, maybe this is something for us to be inspired by, and you guys think that we should give this a go, riding, or maybe even giving it a run attempt. I don't know, you could drop those thoughts down in the comments below. Now, it's not just Everesting that the pros have been getting up to, and I spotted a couple examples of some goals or tasks that the pros have been setting themselves. And the first one is from ITU superstar Richard Murray. Now, he has set up something that he's called the Can Challenge. Now, I'm not sure if that's a wider global thing, but essentially he's taken 2 cans of Red Bull, one of his sponsors, and he's doing press-ups on top of them, which is clearly a very difficult thing to do. And he says himself, had to be done, failed to start with, but I challenge you to give it a go. And he also gives us some tips for if we try it ourselves, saying, remember to keep the elbows straight and not move sideways on the down push. So I think I'll be giving that a miss, Richard, but I did notice that he put on his gloves to make sure it wasn't too sore. Now moving on, another nice goal or task that I spotted was from Imogen Simmons, Swiss athlete living in Geneva. Now, she has said that we've been talking about doing the Traversée du Lac since the beginning of the confinement here in Geneva, and today was the perfect morning for it. So essentially her and some friends swam across the lake and back again, and that was about 3.3 kilometers, she said. So certainly looks like a nice way to spend her morning and get some different training in, especially since we're not able to get into the pools at the moment.
Well, it really is great to have Fraser back on screen, and hopefully in the not too distant future, all 3 of us will be reunited in person in a video on GTN. Well, now it's time to finish up with the Caption Competition, and last week we had this picture from the 2009 ITU Gold Coast World Champs. And you know how bad I am at sort of narrowing down the runners-up, so we've got a few here, but this first one I have to rely on Fernando Gomez that it is correct, because it's a quote from Peter Pan, and I haven't actually seen Peter Pan. Here we go. After all, oh dear. After all, one can't leave his shadow lying about and not miss it sooner or later. Don't you agree? I'm afraid it's over my head, as you could probably tell by my poor reading there from that quote. Fergal Alcala is our next runner-up. Sorry, but at this slow speed, you two are mere shadows of your former selves. I think that could relate to me when I get back out and try and race. Steve Davies is my next runner-up. I don't know about you, but I'm just a shadow of my former self. Yeah, those two on the few on that track. Now it's me, myself and I. That was from Ed Cochran. And our final runner-up from Chris Gregory, first day of work experience shadowing a triathlete. But this is the one that got my vote and will be getting this week's GTN swim cap. It's Joseph S. Hayden with "We will get through this, not a shadow of a doubt." Well, Joseph, I like the positivity behind that message, and as a result, get in touch and we will send one of these GTN caps out to you. And now for this week's photo, for your chance to win a GTN cap, we have this one from 2009 Ironman Nice. It's Marcel Zamora of Spain celebrating a winning for the 4th consecutive year with a new course record. I am sorry that we've got all of these race pictures, but they do give us a little bit of motivation, don't they? Anyway, make sure you leave your caption suggestions in the comments section below. And that brings us to the end of this week's show. It's been great to share it with Fraser and see the team all back together again. But we've still got lots more coming out. This week there's going to be a video of the pros' toughest workouts, or indoor workouts, so keep an eye out for that one, some which you can maybe go and try and replicate. We've also going to be having a video on tips to find or perfect that running route. And if you are still training indoors, check out the GTN shop for our GTN indoor training bundles. That'll be on the screen now. And in case you missed it, talking of the pros and you want to get nosy and see what their setups are like, well, they've shared their indoor training setups in this video just down here. And Mark and I shared you in a little bit on behind the scenes of how we've been getting on filming here at GTN. And you can catch our vlog just down here.